What is up, everybody? Welcome to my channel. With me is a good friend of mine and a well-regarded professional poker player in the Sacramento area. Oh my gosh, I am falling all over my words today. Welcome, Matt Holtzclaw, to the show. How are you doing?
As well as can be expected. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm super excited to have you. Actually, I've been wanting to have you on the show for a while. You're kind of I would say one of the most respected professional poker players in the Sacramento area, and you've kind of flown under the radar with not being known. But I know you like it that way. But you were on Stones Live quite a bit, so people got to know you a bit. Let's go back a little bit.
Okay, let's go back.
We'll do a timeline.
Yeah.
You and I became friends, I think around the time Stones Live started going on. You were playing in a lot of the bigger games and I was doing commentary. When did you start playing poker? How did you get into poker and then bring us to Stones Live?
All right, well, I started playing poker I guess the first time that I ever really played was like early 2000s, probably sometime between 2000 and 2002 was the first time I ever played. And that was mostly like in really tiny house games, and we're playing random games just like random games with wilds in them, and like baseball and all the stuff like that. And then I started, I watched the 2002 WSOP main event on TV. That was the last year that they didn't have hole cards. This guy named Rob.
That was at Binion's, wasn't it?
Yeah. And it was, so was Moneymaker's Year. Moneymaker's Year was at Binion's also. But
there was one year where they did it at Binion's and the final table at Rio or something like that. They were like halfway transitioning.
That sounds accurate. I can't remember what year that was, but yeah. But Varconi was like, that was the last year that they didn't have hole cards, and I was just like, oh, this is cool, but the watching it on TV is kind of boring. I want to try to get into this, and so I started playing online some. I played like on Party Poker, and then I started playing in home games with friends that were Hold'em and like a little bit bigger. And I had like a small business out of college in 2003, and I was doing well playing poker, and the business didn't work out, so I fell into playing poker, and I played mostly tournaments back then. And I went from there. I've been playing ever since. So.
I didn't know you mostly played tournaments at some point. I've always known you as just a straight cash game player.
I probably sort of came up as a tournament player. I started playing cash like a lot more after Black Friday, but I was playing like in 2000. My son was born in 2008, and in 2009 I started playing cash more because of the convenience of being able to quit when I wanted and stuff, like for his benefit. So that's when I became a cash player, really. But I didn't quit tournaments until 2011, and then I haven't really played them since.
Yeah, from what I hear, I mean, the cash games are so good in Sacramento. It's hard to.
I mean, they're okay, Veronica. They're not so good.
Are you kidding? Have you looked at some of the 1-3?
They're okay. They're okay.
You've played Veronica and Friends. Come on.
They're okay. For everybody listening, they're just okay.
Don't come to town. They're not good.
Sacramento's boring like they tell you anyway. Nobody wants to be here.
All I do is talk about how much I love Sacramento. So stop ruining. Like, Sacramento sucks. Don't come to town. It is
nothing to see here. Nothing to see here.
It is kind of a hidden gem, though.
It's great. It's a great town.
It surprises me.
It's a great
people
town.
Don't know how nice it is.
Yeah. It's it's got like the reputation that preceded it in the 80s and 90s, and it's never really kicked it. But it's not the same these days. Like and we're in a different age now. There's all kinds of stuff to do in every reasonably sized town, so that it always had the reputation that there's nothing to do here.
There's nothing to do in San Jose. That's what I think. It's like a sleepy town. You could lay on. I live by like kind of a main road. You could lay down on the road on a Friday night at midnight before COVID, and no one would run you over. Sacramento has always been just like I tell everyone this, when I moved to Sacramento, it felt like home. And you can just like walk around downtown. It's a little bit blue collar, so it's like laid back, salt of the earth kind of people. People will talk to you, and I just love that. It's just like a warm city.
Yeah, and there's the good thing about Sacramento, I think, is depending on what part of town you live in, you can get your whatever flavor interests you. There's different parts of town that will, be adequate to your interests, I would say. So
Yeah,
there's
for
a little
sure.
bit for everybody.
Yeah, I agree. And the housing prices are still pretty affordable compared
Compared to
to.
you guys, yeah, compared to you
Oh,
guys.
yeah, forget about it, honey.
Yeah,
San
yeah.
Jose, you gotta find like a rich 95-year-old, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
But so yeah, so you started playing poker, and then you heard about the live stream. And I know Stones opened up like a couple of years before the live stream. Were you a regular at Stones, or were you just going everywhere?
No, I played. Yeah, I played at Stones. I wouldn't say I was like a Stones regular, but I might have been playing there more than I was playing anywhere else at that time when they opened before the live stream started. Yeah,
So did you meet Mike Postle before the
I,
live stream?
yeah, I've known Mike. Like Mike used to live with a good friend of mine, and then Mike is friends with other pretty good friends of mine, or was friends with other pretty good friends of mine, going back many years. So yeah, I would say that I probably first met Mike before 2012. I don't know if it would have been 9, 10, or 11, somewhere in that vicinity. I would guess is when I first met him.
His Annie Up Player of the Year
I knew him
time.
then. I knew him
Yeah.
then. Yeah, that
And
was
that's
probably a
around the
little bit
time
later.
I met him too.
Hmm. Yeah, and
And
I had heard of him before I was even aware he was in Sacramento because of like online stuff, but I didn't know anything about him really. But I had just that whatever his screen name was on UB, it's inappropriate. I can't remember what the hell it was, but yeah, I had heard of it, so I was aware of him. He was like a big deal in like on pocketfives.com, which I used to frequent like in 2005. There was a very brief period where there was like a UB for whatever reason had a huge presence on that forum. That was a poker forum, not unlike 2+2, except shittier. But yeah, he like at one time had a significant presence there, and a lot of UB guys did, so it wasn't that unusual.
yeah, did you hear about him being brought on to that blackjack show because he knew the guy who owned Ultimate Bet?
Yeah, I think years ago, before that, I knew Mike Postle personally. I think I'd watched that show, so then I was like, "Oh shit, that's crazy that he was involved with that as well." But yeah, looking back on like how incestuous that UB group was, I'm not that shocked that he got in there.
So, can I ask you, from your play with him off stream, was there a difference from him playing off stream or pre-cheating than there was when he was cheating?
So he definitely played a lot more hands once he started cheating. He definitely played. I would say I don't want to say definitely. I would say he played shorter sessions once he started cheating. He did not play off stream once he started cheating, but like the way that he hardly played off stream, at least not with me. But I wouldn't say I played like a ton with him before the stream. But when I had played with him on the stream, I thought he was like button clicky. I thought he like made some wild plays, but I didn't think he was like the a poker god or the craziest human being that I'd ever seen in my life. Like he became on the stream once I saw all of his hands compilated.
Yeah, so one thing people might not know is that you and I became friends during, Stone's Lives starting. And you have always been kind of like Andrew Barber. Also, you have been a voice of reason. And so I would run things past you, and you were very skeptical,
Yes.
right? Because
Yes.
you were
So
like,
I did
"We
not.
can't."
I did not want to believe he was cheating, first of all. And second of all, I was just like, this dude plays like an unorthodox style. Like, I don't know what the hell he's doing. Pre-stream, I did oftentimes wonder what the hell he was doing. I'm not going to lie. but like I also had not spent a lot of time watching the stream. And honestly,
Right.
from the period of time that he started cheating to the end of the stream, I had watched like a few hours consecutively at one time, but not more than that. And then like I would occasionally get sent or shown a hand that he played, but I was not keeping a close enough eye on it to realize just how absurd what was occurring
Well,
uh,
I
was.
think, yeah, I think it's good for people to know that there was a lot of chatter among poker players, among friends of mine about
There was.
him potentially cheating. And the one thing people need to realize is that none of us were, on a witch hunt. I know when I spoke with you, when I spoke with Andrew, anyone I spoke with, there was a lot of skepticism, and a lot of us were unsure. Whenever I'd go to you, you would be like, "Hey, V, you might be button clicking. Like we can't ruin this guy's reputation."
Right, for sure.
So,
I mean, I'm part of the reason why you didn't come forward sooner. I know that. Like, and I was like, I had a conversation. I know you had a Zahn on before. I had a conversation with the Zahn where I tried to talk him down, and another friend of ours was involved in that chat, and they both were more adamant that like something was going on than I was. I was just like, I didn't want to believe it, and I was like, why would it didn't make sense to me at the time with the information that I had.
Right. And like I say this all the time, and also it's a defense for the commentary team. None of us were watching every single hand he played. And so it's hard to come to a conclusion if like someone's having we've seen a lot of crazy shit and someone having a hot streak and doing, having a high VPIP and playing unorthodox. And we're like, well, it happens sometimes.
No, the commentators got a bad rap for the most part. Most of you got a bad rap because most of you only commentated like once every 3 weeks. And then for the sessions that you didn't commentate on, like sorry, Stones Live, and you all commentators are like, most of you are all are friends of mine, and I like most of you, but the show was shit. Like nobody watched it. So like you guys didn't watch it though. When you weren't commentating, you never sat there and watched the show. That's true.
We were gaining momentum, but I think Justin. It seemed like Justin could have potentially been like bringing the show to a lower level to have less eyes on it.
That's possible. But to my point is that you guys, none of you were watching when you weren't commentating, so none of you guys could realize like this is occurring even when I'm not, like he never loses. Like even when I'm not on the show, he doesn't lose. Like it doesn't matter if you only see one session every 3 weeks or whatever.
Right.
You're not going to think like, wow, this guy is unbeatable. But when you see it, we see hand after hand all piled on top of each other.
Well, I think by the time I did commentary that last time with Berkey in the game,
yeah,
I think that
I was in that game also.
Yeah. I keep forgetting. It was like such an ordeal. But I don't know, that last game. It was like he stopped caring how noticeable it was. And I sat there, it was, I think, around 4 hours. And I mean, you saw my reaction to Marley's hand. And that Marley's hand was just like, click. Well, I'm like, I'm done.
I remember when you and I talked about it, I was like, when you were telling me you're going to put the video together, I was like, you have to put that Marley hand in there. Because that was like there's so many examples of him bluffing people off of like weakish made hands. But that was like the perfect example of him folding a hand that no normal human being would fold in that situation. And that's without even considering that this guy is wackadoo. He's off his rocker. He's the craziest player I've ever seen. Like, how is that guy folding top pair with a gut shot? Side note about that hand, by the way, because I know there's been a lot of talk about how strict that no phone policy was in that game. And I haven't heard anybody mention this, which was weird to me. But I'm on my phone, noticeably on my phone in the middle of that hand, because I remember this. The dealer had said like he wanted to contact me or whatever, and he was giving me his number. So I just pull up my phone, and it's like in my face. It's visible on the stream, and I'm on it. So I don't think that the no phone policy was enforced as strictly as they wanted people to believe that it was enforced. I know Berkey was like on his phone in his lap a lot too. I don't think it's impossible that Mike was also using his phone in that last session, because it wasn't like they came and confiscated our phones or like, anything like that. Like he very easily could have had his phone in his lap just because it wasn't visible. That really what that did was it gave him cover because everybody was having to look down at their lap to look at their phone. So it made him look less, whatever you want to call it. He didn't stand out looking down in his lap as much since everybody was doing it.
Well, I felt like in my game, he didn't stand out so much because my game was chaotic and everything was nuts. And it was because he started cheating in my game. And yeah, I don't remember. I remember Alicia saying to him, like, get off your phone, Mike. You know, get in the game.
Yeah, I remember that occasionally too. But he also masked it a lot with all the dramatics and his hands on his head. And like, you know, I don't think anybody in the game, everybody in the game knew that he was looking at his phone. I'm not going to say they didn't, but I don't think anybody in the game realized how often it was occurring because he would like pretend to look at his cards. He would put his hands on his head and act like he had like the toughest decision of all time. He would, you know, there was just so much to his act that made it difficult to realize like, wow, this guy is staring at his crotch 90% of the time. Like, this is bizarre. You know, he did do a good job of like not making that as obvious as it looks now that everybody is aware that it was occurring.
Did you see any of the hands that were switched? Like, did you watch any of those videos?
Well, now I have. I think I had seen the T-bone hand before this all blew up. I think, but I can't recall like having a visceral reaction to it. I think I had seen it like in the room. I think I might have been in the room if I remember right, and I had seen it like on the screen without the commentary. So I don't think I knew exactly what was going on. I think I remember watching it with a friend of mine named Robert, if I remember, I remember thinking like that's bizarre. So that's all I really remember about that hand. I'm pretty sure that was like before this all blew up that I had seen that.
So talk to me like a poker player as though I'm not understanding the switching, because I've had a lot of people ask me, you know, like, why would they switch the cards? And I try to say, you know, if you don't understand poker, it's hard to understand how egregious that all in would have been, Trey's hand in particular. And I did see another hand where he folded like he rivered a boat and then ended up just calling because he couldn't fold or something like that. It was just like really bad. And I don't know, just talk to me about how, I don't know if in the way I think about it is that it seems like someone could have been saying like, oh shit, Mike, like, what are you doing? You're making this so obvious. Now we have to switch the cards to cover up how obvious this is.
Yeah. I think that it's possible that Mike didn't even, if somebody was working with him in the back, which I have no idea, but if somebody was, then I think it's possible Mike didn't even say anything. They're just like, well, screw this. Like, he can't make it this obvious. We have to switch his hand. And then they would have had to tell him later that like, hey, we had to switch your hand. You can't go around talking about that hand. It's also possible that he said like, hey, you better switch this hand. This is going to look really bizarre. But yeah, it's possible that Mike didn't even like have the final say in that. They just did it knowing like there's no way anyone's going to believe that he just, you know, 3-bet shoved into 0 fold equity with nothing, or 4-bet shoved, whatever it was, 4-bet shoved, I believe. He just had, you know, seemingly 0 fold equity. It just so happened the guy has the one time in a 1,000 that the guy's making a move there.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, I don't
also
know.
Also I want to say that the reason why they switched it to that hand specifically is because he would have just called with like even the second nut in that spot. Typically, most people would have like he had to have exactly the nuts or absolutely nothing to shove, and nobody would shove with absolutely nothing. So like they had to make it look like, oh, this guy had the nuts here. That's why he shoved. Even if he had shoved with like 2 pair, it'd be like, man, that's really weird, because almost everyone would have just flatted with 2 pair in that spot. If they or folded, obviously most people would have folded. But I'm saying like if they decided to continue, they wouldn't have shipped it. So it was because like T-Bone's hand looks super strong, and it's just like I don't see that many people like shipping it. So they specifically gave him the nut. So it's like nobody could ever say like, oh, why would he ship with that hand?
My thinking of Justin potentially being involved, where I think that more than likely he was involved, it's not just that hand, and not just, it's like many variables that have led to me thinking that. It took me a little while to bring it all together, but someone had to be involved, I think, based off of a technical aspect, which is like, how is Mike going to tap into the stream on his own? I mean, like, you'd have to really have a sophisticated operation. So someone being involved seems more likely. Someone being involved on the inside, because then they actually don't have to tap into anything. But also
no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, someone being involved also has to be knowledgeable enough about poker to know when it looks fucking terrible and when it's like, oh, okay, Mike. But I can see how it evolved into Mike being less and less careful about how he was portrayed.
Right. I'd say the most charitable thing I could say, considering like somebody else not being involved, is still somebody would have had to be making some shady dealings here. But Mike could have been like, oh, I don't want to wait for the stream. What did T-Bone had that hand? I had the hand that I had the nuts, and he could explain the hand. He'd be like, the hand where I had, what, 8-9 of spades, when he didn't really have 8-9 of spades, whatever the hand was that he's going to have. What did T-Bone have that hand? And the graphics operator could potentially innocently think like, oh, that's what you had that hand. But like that, he still should not be communicating with the graphics team before the stream comes on, and he still should not be getting information from them. But that would be a way that if he was like hacked into the system and knowing that he needed to cover his tracks, that he could convey to the graphics team like, hey, I had 8-9 of spades that hand. I know a stream probably not going to say that, but what did T-Bone have? And that's the way he could pretend like he's conveying that information without needing it to be conveyed, I guess. That still seems highly, highly unlikely to me.
I watched that stream many, many times. That was one of the streams that I just kept around that hand, just because I had Trey on the show and everything. Yeah. I didn't see him go back to the tech after the hand. But I don't know. He had like 30 minutes. So that's an interesting take.
I mean, look, clearly he knew that his hand was going to be wrong. It's just a matter of like how it was, why it was changed, how it was communicated that it needed to be changed. I have no idea exactly, but there's no doubt in my mind that Mike knew like, oh shit, or Mike or someone working with him or both knew like, oh shit, this is going to look really bad. We need to fix this. Like, this is our only way out. And if we just fix it, no one will ever, what are the odds anyone will ever be like, oh, that's weird that you guys fixed that. And for many, many months, no one did think it was that weird, except for T-Bone himself, I guess. So,
yeah, T-Bone. There were a few people like Scotty stopped playing in my game because of that hand with Mike, which was one of the hands, which was the first hand I think I had in my video that I sent you before I went public with it.
Right. Right. Yeah, there's other hands that people thought were weird, but I'm saying that one specific hand, nobody thought that was like the smoking gun until we had all the other evidence on top of it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that the whole thing worked that way, and that none of us saw enough of everything to like come to the conclusion until Joey did hours and hours of streams. Do you have any thoughts, and I don't want you to say anything you're not uncomfortable with, but do you have any thoughts of like the tech or Justin potentially being involved, or like, did you see anything?
Did I see? No, I did not see anything. There were things that I thought were weird after it all went. That I didn't think were weird at the time. That I thought were weird after it happened. Like Postle's communications with some of the techs, and in some instances, I can't remember which tech it was, so I don't want to like name any names because I don't remember who he's talking to. But there would be times that he would say like, man, he had a buddy relationship with almost all the techs. And there was one time in particular that one came out and he was like, man, I was so card dead this session. And the tech was like, yeah, you didn't pick up a hand. You couldn't pick up better than a queen high all session long. And I just thought it was weird that a tech would be paying such close attention to Mike's hands in particular. But I just wrote it off as like, oh, Mike is the star of the stream. Mike is poker god. So they're
Yeah, and we were all kind of like family there.
right. So I didn't think anything of it in the time, but I did think back to like that conversation after everything broke down, where it was like there were times where I felt like the texts were pretty focused on Mike's play, and that doesn't mean that any of them were involved. It was just unusual in hindsight, and it's definitely unusual that Justin knew. Like in that last session, I remember hearing from Justin the exact number that Mike like cashed out or how much Mike was up, and that seemed bizarre. I mean, there was no chance that Mike knew like the exact number that I cashed out or that Adam cashed out or whoever, but he knew
Right.
like exact number that Mike cashed out. That's unusual. That's weird to me. And Justin always seemed to know the like exact numbers that Mike would cash out, So that's weird.
So I remember telling Justin, like, because I initially came to Justin in March of last year. And then I remember like I did commentary, I think with Jake, that might have been the Jake one, or I did commentary like 2 or 3 times since I told him I thought he was cheating. And I remember him being like, oh, he's on a downswing. Yeah, after I was like, hey, Mike won a lot. It was really, really weird.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh no, but he's on a downswing. So this is just like, it goes up and down. And he's like he's on a 20 or 25K downswing, he said. And I was like,
that's part of the gaslighting that they did to everybody, particularly to you commentators, but to everybody that, they just put it out there like, oh, he's on a 25K downswing, and nobody really doubted it. But also it would be bizarre that Justin would know that. I understand like guys talk with their friends, but that's pretty specific information for Justin to know. And it's also possible that Justin was just exaggerating that because Mike had told me he was on a downswing and Justin just threw a number out of there. Again, a charitable explanation would be that Mike hadn't told him the exact number he's on downswing, and Justin just said like, oh, he told me he's on a big downswing, and in Justin's head it was like 25K, so he just said that. Again, considering that Justin knew all the numbers that Mike cashed out most of the time, that seems highly unlikely to me. It seems like Justin had that ready to go as an excuse. So that has been weird to me too.
Yeah, and that was like when I initially spoke with him, he was like, instead of, if I had come to you with, an issue of something you were running, whether it's a live stream or whatever, I would assume if it's your baby and you want to keep the integrity of the game as your most important, the most important aspect of it, I would think you'd be like, wow, these are heavy accusations, let me look into it. I didn't realize that this could be an issue, but maybe we should take the player out of the game, look into it, and then we can clear the air and have the player back. But literally it was like, no, 0, this is not happening. Martingale strategy. You don't know poker. And next week he has his own show.
Yeah.
So it was quite interesting.
It's also weird to me that before it was clear that there would be, court proceedings or legal ramifications at all. In the days that followed you coming out with your allegation against Mike, that Justin didn't reach out to one player in the player pool, to my knowledge. Like, I don't think he could have been omnipresent enough to realize, like, a lawyer's going to advise me not to reach out, like, the next day. Like, in his situation, someone with his integrity, I would have expected to reach out to guys that were most cheated and been like, hey, like this isn't, I'm really sorry that this came out. This isn't happening. This is how I know it's not, something that he would have done something to ease these people's concerns. And he really, the best of what, my knowledge, what I've heard, he did none of that at all. And that seems weird to me as well.
And it's really weird that him and Kenny were out of town. Oh, I was on Enhance Your Edge podcast and I accidentally said that Taylor was out of town and Justin was out of town. And it wasn't Taylor. It was actually Kenny who was out of town and Justin. And then Mike didn't play and Mike played in my game. So he played twice in my game. And this is what confused me was I was suspicious of him cheating. But then when Justin and Kenny were out of town, he wasn't cheating, and then he played normal and he lost, and his VPIP was low, and I was like, maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, exactly. And that helped his case, honestly, even though I don't think that he did that intentionally. That did help his case. And then he used a couple hands from those sessions when he wasn't cheating in, when he tried to make the denials just after your accusation. He I believe like Rich was in one of those games and there's some hand where he like folds the best hand, but it's like third pair on a 4 straight board against
And it was
Rich.
like a $40 pot or something.
Yeah, and he wasn't cheating that session. So it's just like, wow, Mike, this is like great evidence that you have here. Like,
well, when he gave his rebuttals, I was just shocked because I thought he knew poker better than that. Because even I could tell that those were the worst hands he could have given us to show his innocence.
Yeah, and if he was innocent and he bluffed as often as he did, he would know that he had like a giant bluff into a big hand that got picked off. He would know it. Like people remember when they, if you're playing like 2-5 and you punt 2,500 into the nuts when you have nothing, you remember it. Like it's not something like you can't remember. And he couldn't provide one example of even like, bluffing off 40 big blinds. So they just did not exist. There wasn't one hand of that existing. Like nobody makes perfect decisions like this.
What do you think? An ace king, ace queen?
I'm not really thinking at this point.
One thing I think that is really also a big thing that I think non-poker players can't see is the lack of him calling on the river. Like I've seen you, I would say you and who else? Like there's a handful of you guys that I think are the best. Like I look at you guys as like, I'm like, oh my God, Matt is in the room. I love watching Matt play. But I would not often, but sometimes see you call and be wrong.
Often I call and I am wrong, and often I bluff into the nuts. Also, like these are things that happen. Like
these are things that he did.
Just in that last stream, I could provide numerous examples of me making the wrong decision. Like in one stream, he played every stream and he couldn't provide examples of him making the wrong decision, except in sessions where he wasn't cheating, which are few and far between. So it's like, it's also amazing that he didn't turn the cheating on and off within one stream. He would just turn it off for the entire stream. So it's not hard to pick out that like, oh, this is just a stream where he wasn't cheating. If he had any clue at all, he would have just cheated a few hands during his stream, and it would be way more difficult to pick out, But
I just don't think he has any clue.
Yeah. He started to feel invincible. That is
right.
Certain.
I think he started believing that he was that good.
Mm-hmm.
So and after, anytime I talk to him, so when I speak with you, when I speak with Andrew, any poker and Adam. Any poker player that's doing really well and lasted long term, there's a lot of similarities between you guys. I didn't pick up any of those characteristics when I spoke with Mike, and I was always like, "What the fuck is this? Is this guy crushing everything?" And then when I saw that interview with him and Justin in the booth, I was like, "What is going on?"
But the thing is, when you have aces, they win. When other people have them, you crack them.
Yeah, I think I've ran worse with aces. That's like the one hand that I have lost a number of times recently on the stream.
Oh, okay. So when we see you with aces, that might be the hand used, but 8-5, 9-4, 9-5, those are all pure
those have been golden.
Postle gold.
And I think the hand that I've lost the most with has been aces, and I've played them pretty cautiously.
So crazy. Okay.
So...
what the interview with Mattisau did not help his case either.
I know. I just coming out and saying he's the greatest poker player. Just.
Yeah.
I was really nervous about that interview. I was like, I wonder, like, what is he gonna say? Like, is he gonna throw all of us under the bus? But he just announced how great he was, which was really fun.
Mm-hmm.
And like I've said before, I'm not a fan of Mike Mattisau anymore. I used to, he was in that group of poker players from like the mid 2000s that I really enjoyed watching. He's a character, but I think poker's lost a lot of its characters, and he has he's far from anything that's close to my favorite.
Yeah. I think we could. That's well said. I think.
I'm trying to be nice.
Yeah.
So what are you up to now? So all of poker's closed down. If a Sacramento casino opened up, would you go? If it opened up tomorrow?
If it opened up tomorrow, I probably would not go. I might go if the games were four-handed and they were like monitoring the amount of people that were in the room. If
They should take temperatures.
Yeah, if it opens up tomorrow and there's nine-handed games and they haven't taken any significant measures to like disinfect the chips and to clean the tables, and if things are just business as normal, I won't go. But if there's changes, I'm not positive. I can't tell you for sure if I'd go or not if there's significant changes. I would be more interested in going if there was a seated. I like playing short-handed, so that's like sort of my own inherent bias anyway. But if there was space between the players and if there wasn't 150 people in the room, these would be attractive possibilities for me where I would consider going.
Yeah, and it is your livelihood.
Right.
If they come up with antibody testing, would you go get tested? And if you had the antibodies,
I would.
you'd go?
I would. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, God. If I had the antibodies, I would be like, let's go outside.
Yeah. I almost wanted, at one point, I almost applied because there's a place locally that was doing drive-through testing. It was one of the early ones, I think, here locally. And I almost applied just to make sure I wasn't an active asymptomatic carrier. So I am interested to know, but I decided not to do that because I had heard that you had one shot. You applied and either they accepted you or denied you, and you had one shot. If they denied you, you couldn't go back if you became symptomatic later and tried to get that.
Oh.
So that's why I decided not to do it.
But if you became, I guess, if you
then you'd have to get a test from a doctor, which sounds like it's not easy for everyone.
It's a little easier now. It's a little easier now. I think it wasn't like a month ago or 6 weeks ago.
Right.
I know LA County now is letting everyone get tested for free.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure. I think I read that today.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping it comes up to Northern California, and I really would like to get tested and see. I know that like 6 weeks ago, I had this weird, like my whole body ached for 2 days, and my taste, like everything tasted really weird. And I'm like, maybe I had it. I don't want to jump to any conclusions, but it was just like a really weird 2 days, and then it went away.
Yeah. Well, I had, whatever that, I've heard lots of people talk about that December flu bug, whatever it was that was going around that a lot of people had. And I had it really, really bad. And I almost called like urgent care. It was the day after Christmas where I was like, man, I feel like I'm dying. That was the one day where I felt like I might have a little bit of shortness of breath. I might be struggling to breathe.
I know that they were saying first cases were in November in China. And I know that we live in an area that has a lot of international travelers coming through. I know San Jose especially, but of course, like with how much people move, there's no reason why there wouldn't be something spreading around. So I don't know. I feel I don't want to speculate because I don't have any data to back me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm hoping to get tested. I hope you do too. I ask this of everybody. What do you think is going to happen to the poker economy this year? And then how would it impact, the coming years?
Okay, well, I think it's easier to answer the coming years because I don't know exactly how long it's going to take for the card rooms to open, for casinos to open. I don't know in what I don't know what the mechanism for opening will be. I don't know if they'll look exactly the same as they did before, if they'll look a lot different as far as, like I'm saying, like, will we be playing shorthanded? Will we be playing nine-handed? I think eventually there will be normalcy, and, assuming that we don't fall into like some sort of global depression, which is certainly possible, I think the poker economy will be similar. It seems like there's been like an online poker boom. I haven't really played on these apps at all, but very little at least. But it seems like there's been like, a ton of action there. I'm sure there's private games popping up and what have you. Like people, and I know for certain that people are jonesing to play.
Oh, yes. The day the casino's open, it's going to be packed. Yeah.
Yeah. So I anticipate that the poker economy will mostly rebound. Also, probably for several reasons. Poker and gambling seem sort of recession-proof. Like even in the darkest times, people will gamble. That's one thing that people use to maintain their sanity, even if it's not the best decision to be made.
Long live the DGen.
Yes, exactly. The DGen will never die. That's for sure.
I mean, I have to fight the DGen inside of me a lot. I definitely went through a serious DGen phase, I would say, like in my late 20s.
I wouldn't be surprised if actually, like, if poker professionals try to have used this time and decided, like, I don't want to deal with this shit anymore. Like, this isn't the life that I want to live. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see a few guys walk away from it. And I also wouldn't be surprised if there's some recreational players that are like, wow, that, I don't really miss it. That wasn't for me. But there are just going to be so many people that
I doubt it.
Like jonesing. I mean, there will be a few like that, but not. There's so many people are just jonesing to get back to play, and I think a lot of people would have, like, if the casinos never closed, I think a lot of people would have just continued to go and continued their regular routine. And
I think I always say this about live poker. Live poker is more than just the game. Live poker is the atmosphere, moving those chips, the shit talking, the food, talking to the waitresses. It's like a social event. It's way more than just playing poker.
Yeah, it's like a significant portion of a lot of people's, like, what they do for recreation. Like, it's the significant time spent playing poker. A lot of people play 6, 7, 8 hour sessions, and they do it 3 or 4 times a week. That's a lot of time spent. So
I'm gonna, as soon as not as soon, but as soon as I feel safe enough to go to the casino, I'm gonna put in like a proper 20-hour session. Mark my words.
Would you go back under any condition if it was, like, opened, or are there no circumstances where you would return? Like,
I would not return. I would first want to see about an antibody test, and then I would go with the recommendations. Like, if I was positive, if I did have antibodies, I would go with the CDC's recommendation as to how to proceed now that I know that. If I don't have the antibodies, I will not be going anywhere. And even if I have the antibodies, I would be worried about being a potential asymptomatic carrier, which it could be a problem. But I really, really am waiting for the vaccine. I think I'm going to minimize my me going out in public. I just go to the grocery store like once every couple of weeks with a mask, and I will continue to do that probably until I get a vaccine or until I see the numbers drop.
That's another thing. Like, even though I know there's, like, obviously cloth masks are a long way from foolproof or from being as effective as, like, an N95 mask. Like, as long as they're allowing masks, that's another consideration where, like, I might consider, if they're playing shorthanded, that I might consider playing. I have a concern that because facial recognition is so important in the casino industry, I have a concern that they're going to try to minimize the customers' ability to wear masks.
That's going to be tough. Would you play if they had the plexiglass around you?
Possibly. I don't know. I would also like to hear, like, honestly, I'd like to hear, like, Dr. Fauci say it's okay to go play as long as you have significant space, whatever space he recommended, and the plexiglass was sufficient, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I would like to hear medical health professionals tell me, like, this is okay. Like, this is go ahead.
Did you see the mayor of Las Vegas talk to Anderson Cooper?
Yeah.
Now, although that was a silly interview by her, he did reference a study. They showed how it was transmitted through the air conditioning.
Yes.
That yellow is a person who is asymptomatic and infected, and all those other red circles are other diners who that one diner passed the virus to. All those other people became infected in a restaurant that had air conditioning, and they believe it was the air conditioning.
So that's my concern also, being inside. It would be cool if they could. I would consider going if everyone's wearing masks and maybe we were outside. I know Thunder Valley had like an outdoor table at some point.
That is
I don't know
true.
if it was a final table or something, but outside I would feel much more comfortable if we're all wearing masks.
Yeah, I suppose the issue there is to increase security, because it feels like it'd be a lot easier to grab chips and run if you're outside already. But
Well, I mean, I'm assuming you're on casino grounds,
right, yeah, but still, like I don't know if you've ever looked at the parking lot cameras. They're not quite the same as like the not same quality as like the indoor cameras that they have. So I don't know how that would look, is what I'm saying. If you had 17 tables outside, I don't know how that would look, but I'm not opposed to that. It does feel a lot safer than being inside.
Thunder Valley, I know you have the space. I know you've got the pool area. Put some tables outside for us, huh?
I wouldn't say that's out of the question. I'm not going to say it's likely, but that seems like one potential avenue. There's got to be plenty of venues in Vegas that have the space to do something like that. That they'll at least.
Can you imagine how hot it is too?
That would be a little bit of an issue, but we're gonna have to make some sacrifices here, V. We're not gonna have if we're gonna DJ, we're gonna have to figure out the way to do it as safe as possible.
The safest and most optimal way to DJ.
Yeah.
Well, so what are your plans? How is your family staying safe? Like, what's going on with you right now?
Yeah, so I had my I share custody of my son. I had my son for 6 weeks. Then I just took him back home. I had him 6 weeks straight, and I just took him back home. He'll be home with his mom for 3 weeks now. So I mean, that kept me sane for the first 6 weeks of this. Honestly, is that I at least had that, and then I don't live alone. I have a roommate, so that's also helped me stay sane because I haven't been leaving the house much. So it's difficult, but trying to maintain walk every day and just trying to maintain some sense of normalcy through all this best that I can. It's been all right. Poker players don't live regimented lives for not a lot of poker players don't live this regimented life. A lot of us are used to having to do our own thing, and we don't maintain a consistent schedule. So that part of it I've been all right with, but it is difficult just being cooped up all the time. And online has not been calling my name. So I haven't played that much.
Are you doing Zoom chats with all your friends? You having gambling nights? I've heard of gambling nights.
Yeah, I have Zoom. Not done. I've heard there's a lot of that going on. I know. I have not done a lot of the Zoom chatting. I have been keeping in touch with all my friends, but I really haven't done that much Zoom chatting. Honestly, this is a special. I took
a birthday gift from me.
Yeah, well,
from you.
A birthday gift for you.
Yeah. Well, cool. I won't take up too much more of your time. I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate you. I know that you fly under the radar for the most part. So I appreciate you putting yourself out there and talking to me about the whole Postle situation and just poker in general. And if anyone wants coaching, Matt's available. I'm just kidding.
I guess I am. I haven't done coaching in a long time, but I guess now is the time.
Well, if you say that, what would be an ideal student for you?
It's a good question, honestly. And it's not something I'd given serious thought to. So you're putting me on the spot, making me go off the top of my head here. I would say an ideal student for me is someone probably. I think I could benefit someone who can beat or who can break even in 1-3 games right now. I think I could help someone take the next step more than I could help someone who is very much a beginner. It's harder for me personally to put myself back in the mindset of the very early stage because I've played for 20 years. So I think I am just better equipped to help someone who has a decent understanding of the game but would like to sharpen things around the edges.
So tell me the top 3 most important things that it takes to be a professional poker player?
I would say bankroll management is number 1. Not playing in games that you can't afford to play in. That's like the most important
Not
thing.
sports betting all your profits? No.
Not, yeah. I mean, that's all. Yeah. Not degenning is part of that. Absolutely. But like, yeah, don't, make sure that you're not putting yourself in a situation where you have a risk of ruin, especially, nobody wants to have to loan, but especially if you don't have any power to borrow, then you never ever want to put yourself in a spot where you can't be in the game anymore. That's first and foremost. I would say second is not to be ego driven. Play, like, you don't have to play in the biggest game, and you don't have to play in like the games that all your friends are playing in or whatever. You just need to play in games where that you can beat. Play in games where the level of competition is at a level you're comfortable with. Nobody needs to beat the best. Like, nobody needs to sit there in games like with the best players in their player pool. That's not what you need to do. Like, if you want to play professionally, you just need to play in the best game that you could possibly play in. For me, that's like one of the most key aspects. Is anyone that like wants to get in a dick waving contest and decide that they're significantly better than the rest of the regs in the area is probably not going to last long. And then I would say number 3 is to be willing to consistently evolve, like study often, don't get stuck in your ways. Obviously, there's multitudes of ways to study these days, but anyone who thinks like, I've plateaued, I am where I can be, I'll never get any better than this, I don't need to study anymore, is fooling themselves, and they won't succeed in the long run, I would say.
I think that applies to most areas. I mean, I work in tech, and like, if you're not constantly keeping up, the software is always changing. There's no way you're going to code something or build something one way and then expect it to be identical in a year or 2. It's just, right. I always tell everyone, don't memorize the software. Remember where to go to find the information that you need, because that's the best. You have to just constantly adjust and constantly read and constantly try to maintain. Anyway,
makes sense.
I digress.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense.
Well, it was hella nice seeing you. Hella good.
Well, it was.
I fought that word for a long time, and now I'm like, you know what? I'm a Baydestrian.
You've lost all your Canadianisms, but you've picked up Northern Californianisms.
As soon as I got to Sacramento, I'm like, this is home. I've been a Northern Californian since I moved to Sacramento, and it was, when was it? Like 2012, I believe.
I guess if you were a true Sacramentan, then you would have went with Hecka, but that's Sacramento specific. Sacramento specific.
If I was 17 working in Arden Mall, I would say Hecka, because that's the only place I've ever heard it.
That was a thing in Sacramento, specifically in the late 90s. Yes.
But yeah, even the funny thing about this place is like, I'm working with people who like wear Converse in like very high-end meetings, which is kind of cute. And then like, we'll be in meetings with like top leaders and executives and directors, and like someone will throw out a hella, yeah, man, that was hella good. And everyone's like, yeah, it was. And like, no one even flinches. I'm like, what is going on? This is amazing. I love the Bay.
Yeah. I think hella's been adapted into everybody's vernacular by now. We've taken over the world. Hella is a thing. That's a thing. It
is a thing. I think it's officially a word, actually.
Yeah,
so.
I agree.
All right. Well, you have a wonderful night. It was really awesome talking to you. And once this is all over, we need to get together for a meal.
Yeah, absolutely. You name the time and the place, I'll be there.